Okay, so I'm just going to give a quick overview of some of the changes that we've made to Data Studio version 3.3, and also give a bit of a refreshment on the controls that did exist previously in the software. So I'm currently in the local viewer. We know this because there's no globe on the actual screen here. I can get the globe by clicking the icon that looks like an atlas in the top right hand corner, and you then get the GIS view where you can place your data on the ground, and you can view other data types as well on that globe in a contextual type view. We don't need that today, so I'm just going to turn that off. Now I'm just going to load some data up before I can show you the controls. So I'm just going to load a point cloud. Doesn't really matter what I load. Click open. And there's no intensity data for this data set, so I'm going to use my paint pot, which I mouse over here. It says colouring. I'm going to click it and add some colour to this. It looks fairly washed out, but that's because it's quite a bright scan. Okay, so just zooming out, and I'll show you the controls. If I hold the middle mouse button down, you see the red, green and blue circles appear. And I'm just going to move my mouse to and fro and around the screen. You can see that tilts the data as you're looking at it. If I use the right mouse button, held down, and move the mouse, you see the data move in a pan mode. If I use the scroll wheel, it zooms in and zooms out. And it does this into the center of the screen. So if I just turn the data off quickly, and I hold the middle mouse button down, it's zooming to the intersection of the red, green and blue lines that you see on the screen now. So if I zoom in, it'll go towards that point every time. So I'm just going to turn the point cloud data back on. And if I want to zoom into a particular part of the point cloud, I need to move it to the center of the screen. So if I just do this now, it's moving to a random location that I may have moved it to by doing the pan or the tilt. But if I mouse over this bit over here, I can hit X. I'm not clicking the mouse, I'm not even touching the mouse right now. Just hit X on the keyboard and it centralizes that location that my mouse was over to the center of the screen. So now I can now zoom into that location. And actually, if I want to zoom into this part here, mouse over, hit X. I'm now zooming into that part. And you can navigate quite simply by using the X key and the mouse in this way. Now, if you look down into the bottom of the screen here, we have a number of new buttons. The first three are about the up axis. Now most people know who have scanned data use Z as the up axis, and in fact this one is the Z axis in this case. And down here, these icons or buttons here are depicting the X, Y and Z for the camera location. So what we do is, if we know this data is registered as Z up, we need to get our camera view Z up. Okay, and then we'll be able to easily move around the data like I am now. If I was to move my axis to make it Y up, you see the data turns on its side. I'm looking at it from a completely different angle now. But that has locked me in the Y axis. And the same thing for the X, so do the same thing. So that's looking down the X axis at the data now. It's locked me in that state. Okay, so I know this is Z up anyway. Most people use Z, like I say, and it's all about making sure your data is exported correctly from the software that you've used with your scanner. This is particularly important in handheld scanners and things like that. So I'm just going to use my camera position to make sure I'm looking at this in the correct Z up mode. So that's where the data corresponds to my camera. Okay, the next one is all about the current view. So I can change my view around this data based on the Z axis to look down, look sideways, look along it from any perspective. So this is bottom up right now, and that's top down. So very useful. I find these buttons very useful for getting yourself out of trouble if you get lost within the data set itself. Okay. Now you can actually place this data on the ground on the GIS if you desire, and you can do that by selecting the point cloud and clicking this georeference button just here, that switches you into the GIS mode, and you can see there's a little pin on the ground, which if I zoom down to, it zooms to, and it says drag or double click to position and enter to accept that position. So if I just double click somewhere in the UK, you can see my pin moves to that location. When I'm happy, I can simply click enter on the keyboard, and that will place that data set that was in the local view only on the globe. And as you can see, it's sunken in the ground quite a bit here because the terrain of the model doesn't match the actual data set itself, but that doesn't really matter. We can grab hold of this hand here, and we can select the position tool. So click this tick box, and you can see we've now got a X, Y, and Z, so red, green, and blue set of arrows on the screen, which allows me to move the data that's selected in this project workspace over here. So I can grab the up arrow and left click and hold, and I can move the entire data set, and you get the idea, on each of the actual arrows. I can also grab the circles, the red, green, blue circles around the actual data set, and I can rotate the data, and that's effectively changing the data in terms of its position. And now I've placed this on the globe, you can also see in the bottom left hand corner that these buttons are now greyed out because I have georeferenced it. And you can see by this icon here, I've georeferenced the data. So now when I go back into the local view, double click to find my data again, you can see you can no longer change the up axis from the camera's point of view because the data has been georeferenced on the ground. Okay, that should help you with the new navigation modes in the local viewer and how to move data around as a quick refreshment. The other controls that are quite useful to know about in the viewer are, if I just turn the position tool off by clicking the hand and unticking the position box, are the first person controls. So what I need to do to show you how they work is to get quite close to the ground, because these are about walking around inside the data, and you need to be walking around in quite good proximity to the data you're trying to show. So I'm just going to X over some of these points here, zoom down, and get myself looking up. So I'm looking at the horizon. Okay, and you can get yourself into first person by clicking on this button here. On mouse over, you can see it says first person view. You can click on this, or you can use the spacebar on the keyboard to toggle your controls. So first person, I've clicked it, you see it's gone yellow. I'm now in the position where I hold the middle mouse button down and I'm moving my head. I'm looking around. So I can look 360, I can look anywhere I like in this view. Right mouse button allows you to still pan, and the scroll wheel lifts your position up and down as if you're standing or squatting. The other controls in the first person mode are on the keyboard, and they are W to walk forward. You can see I'm walking through it ever so slowly because I'm probably still quite high off the ground here, and it feels slow. So W is walk forward, S is walk backwards, A is sidestep left, and D is sidestep right. Okay, so they are fairly slow. I mean, you can see they're quite slow in this context, but if you were walking down the street, you wouldn't want it to be too fast. But if I hold the Shift key down and now hit the W key to walk forward, you can see it's a lot faster. It's increased my speed. And it'll do the same thing for the S, A, and D keys. But it also does the same thing for the scroll wheel. So I'm holding Shift down and I'm using the scroll wheel to lift myself up a lot quicker. And once you've mastered those key controls, you can start to join them up. So I'm using my left hand to hold the Shift key down, hold the W key down, and now my right hand I'm using the middle mouse button held down to steer where I'm going. These are standard gaming controls for people who are used to using computer gaming type controls. But on here it does take a little bit of getting used to if you're not used to this kind of thing. Just using the W key there to sidestep whilst walking forward and using the mouse. So you can see you can navigate around the road in this case if you wanted to, and start to exploit your data a little bit better. Okay, that concludes.